Alrighty, so this is a little story about the socket controller. So this device here. So what we're looking at here is a smart switch with the premise of standalone autonomy. So back in 2020, I was in Peru and I had a ozone air generator I was using to purify the air because of the carbon monoxide and this kind of thing. I bought a smart switch from the hardware store, brought it back. It had a protocol to connect into like different systems. I was like, okay, let's see what it can do. The onboard capabilities of the device were basically a digital timer connected to an app. Shortly after, the app was made unavailable because the device itself was kind of made obsolete. And so I saw that as an opportunity to explore what is possible with such a device given the premise of standalone autonomy. So that's what I've developed. It's a fully standalone electronic outlet controller. So we've got two outlets for the Australian version. Just takes a standard IEC computer socket in with capability for the full 10 amp consumer outlet capability. So yeah, that's the device. I've built a front end for it, which allows for basically configuring the device. So let's check that out. Alrighty, so I have connected to find.socketcontroller.com here, and so that has brought up one Cloud Announce device. So let's connect into that, and we can see the US version, which is in another room, that is connected. It's been up for 6 days, so that's good. This device is connected to an environmental sensor. We can see that here. So we've got a light sensor and a temperature and humidity sensor along with the onboard power sensor. So let's go back home. We can see voltage is being measured. Let's check that out. So this is just a program called voltage, and it is reading the voltage. So these are the sensor inputs, and let's check out the program. So we have all of these programs. For example, temperature is just monitoring, so it's not doing anything with the outputs. So that looks like that on the dashboard there. So in order to control an output, let's check out this one. So this is actually controlling an output, so it's not monitor only. We can see a bunch of options here relating to the program options. This one is set to control the outlet LED rather than an output, and that is going to be triggered based on any of these things. So I did actually have a different sensor which had air quality, so I was basically using it to trigger the sensor if air quality degraded with a CO2 level above this level, but I've unplugged that sensor. Now we're back on the environmental sensor. So this is actually an irrelevant program, so we can disable that. But yeah, so we can see that these sensors are connected and active, and we can do all kinds of fun stuff with that. For example, let's check this out. So we'll make a program that, for example, if the power level goes like, if we're using, for example, I wanted to turn on a vacuum cleaner if a power tool was turned on. So that means we would measure the power level. If the power level went above, 1800 watts or whatever, then we can trigger the output based on that, for example. So basically we can control the outputs using any sensor input passing through a threshold. I've done a full run through of showing the device capabilities, which goes into that, but I'm just doing another overview of the device. That's some of the features. So let's go back to settings. We can see that we are logging temperature and humidity. So if we go across to the graph, we can see every 6 minutes it'll throw a data point into today's log, and then we can drill down on that, for example, or yesterday. The logs are stored in GMT time for each day, so we go 10 a.m. through 10 a.m. GMT. We can change the time zone, whatever, and then that will be rendered in the front end. Basically, so that's the device. You know, I would like to do a manufacturing run. That would require a list of interested parties who'd be willing to pay like 220 Australian dollars. I could, you know, potentially pull that off. That would need a considerable list of like however many people to justify electrical safety certification, which would be around $10,000 Australian basically. So I'd need to put down 10 grand Australian and then certify the whole thing. Then it would be like, okay, I've got a list of people I can sell it to, and I need to recoup that 10 grand. That's the strategy at the moment. So yeah, I guess I'll see if I can build that list. So in hypothetical land, if that list was sufficiently proved out, then I would look forward to actually delivering this product to people in Australia, I guess, is the plan at present. And then if that was proved out, then potentially move to the US. That is the plan at present, where you know, you could get an underwriter certification for the US market, Underwriter Labs. So yeah, let's see if I can build that list out. We'll see. Anyway, that's the product. Thanks for watching. So let's bring this device onto our network. So we've got our power cable here, and we're going to plug in the power. But before we do that, we're going to hold down this Wi-Fi button and power it up. And then as it powers up, it will power up into AP mode, which we can see by the green LED there, fading in and out, indicating it is in AP mode. Okay, so now we'll come across to our computer and we'll connect directly to the device. All right, and then we'll come over to our web browser and we'll connect to the device by its IP directly. We're connected. This is the AU version, obviously. We're going to come across to settings. We're going to change this to station mode, and we're going to select our Wi-Fi network. We can do a scan, and then we can choose, you know, a different name, and then save that and reboot into. When we reboot, we will reboot into whatever's saved here, so it'll be station mode. I'm just going to give it a manual reboot over here. So I'm going to come across and hit the reboot button. And then as we see, it'll reboot into station mode, which will not be fading. So we see we've got the solid LED there. So we're going to come across to this tool to find out where it's at. So we've got the US version and the one I've just connected here, right? Let's connect to it. Okay, and we can see that the sensors are not connected, so they're not going to come through. None of this will come through because that's not connected. I can, for example, check out the voltage, for example, because that sensor is connected. So we can see we've got our voltage coming through as such. So that will connect the device to our network, and then there it is. We can go connect to the other one, the American version, and we can see that is connected as well. So that's the two devices. That's that. Okay, just for the sake of completeness, I'm going to show the air quality sensor being connected up. So we can see we've got the sensor here not connected. This is the air quality sensor, which also, as well as the other previously shown sensors, has an air quality sensor which shows CO2 level and TVOC, total volatile organic compounds. So it's basically two different sensors for your air quality sensor there. So let's come across to our device here. So we're on the device, and we can see we've got our different programs here, none of which are obviously showing anything. Come across to our settings, and we see none of our sensors are showing up. We've only got the one sensor. So let's go across and plug that in. Cool. All right, so we'll just plug our Connect sensor right in here. Actually, yeah, no, that's fine. We'll plug our sensor in like this. Boop. And then we can come across back to our web interface, and we can see that it has updated. So we've got a new sensor, which will take a couple minutes to warm up before it can give off data. And we've got two more sensors being logged here. So let's check this. Let's check out the graphing for this. So I'll go to our graph. So we can see some previous logging data from the most recent data. So we've got our CO2 levels, TVOC levels back from Friday the 10th of July this year, not including the warm-up period. So basically how this works is once a second it will take a data point, and then it will average that over 6 minutes, and then it will get added to our log file here. So we can see that is 1 day worth of logging. Yeah. So if we come back across to home, we can see we're getting our temperature, our humidity, and we're just waiting on that warm-up period for a couple minutes. Alrighty, so that sensor has had plenty of time to warm up, and we can go back to the home screen and see that we are pulling new data, CO2 and TVOC. So that is the air quality sensor. Yeah, thanks for watching.